Hi everyone, my name is Bart Smikla and I will be our host for today's meeting. I would like to remind everyone about our code of conduct, which we can summarize as be excellent to each other. Is there anyone who would like to introduce himself or herself? And I don't know here. Okay, so let's jump straight to our, please add your name to our attendees list.
I think somebody had their hand up in chat. Do you want to unmute yourself and say a little bit about yourself?
Yep. Oh, sorry, didn't saw it.
We can't hear anything if you're trying to speak.
You hear me?
Oh, now we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. So was just a friendly hello to everyone because I think I presented myself 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yep. So
I can do again in case you just...
So let's jump into our recurring topic. So we did billing review, so let's jump to action items review. And is there Linus here now? I'm not sure, I don't see him.
If not, I can speak a little bit to that. So he sent out another notice on March 18th about the vanity domain flip. The PR for handling child images went through. The proposal for optimizing backups to reduce token usage also went through. And I think there's a meeting scheduled in starting in 2 hours or so to get folks into the same place for the vanity domain flip. Hey, Linus, I was just trying to say, I think everything is set for the vanity domain flip. I wasn't sure if there was anything specific you had to add there from an action items perspective.
Yeah, I checked things yesterday. I don't think there's anything to add other than I just need to make sure that, yeah, the new prod is a superset of the old one. That's easy to do. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So let's jump to the audit. Actually, I'm not sure what audit we are talking about here, but there is a new GCP audit merged last week in our repository. So feel free to look in all resources. No, maybe not all yet, but the resources which we are currently auditing. So it should be, it is now there.
So we talked, hey guys, sorry I'm late. We talked by email or bug or something about maybe setting up one of these meetings where we do some partial audit as a group and then shard out the work. I would love to do that after we get the stuff done today. So maybe we plan that for the next meeting or the next meeting.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I'm up the next week, the next meeting. Yep. So there is the first, so this was the last of our action items from the last time. Let's jump into the open discussion right now. So the first topic is policy around granularity and grouping for artifact storage paths. Aaron.
Yeah, hey, this was me kind of noticing a discussion that started happening on a PR related to a Kubernetes CSI artifact. And I felt like it maybe merited discussion with people here. It's maybe not clear to me if we have all the appropriate people here, but to give some context, somebody from CSI wanted to add a project for the secret store CSI driver. And then that Tim ended up commenting on this PR about like, hey, I think this really kind of raises the question of granularity and how we should group things together and why, which then caused the cluster API folks to figure out like, okay, how would we group together all of the cluster API provider projects? And I think Jason took an action item at the cluster API meeting to put together a proposal and bring it back to this group. I think I wanted to just ask like, why do we want to group artifacts in the first place? Because to me, it just seemed like we were blocking somebody from moving forward, and it was unclear to me like why now was the time we were drawing the line.
So the reason I brought it up is only because enough patterns have started to emerge that I saw that we have, some number of cluster API dash prefixes that are all very similar. And my organizing brain said, oh, maybe I should organize that more. Maybe not. I'm okay with the answer being, nah, not worth it. But I thought it was worth throwing out there. So at least when somebody brings it up again later, we can say, yeah, we talked about it and decided not to do that.
Okay. And that's fair. And I feel like maybe that we can have that discussion when the cluster API folks are back. I sort of viewed it as like the appropriate level of granularity might be that each sub-project kind of gets their own credentials or their own bucket. And there are some sub-projects like CSI, for example, that encompass multiple repos and multiple artifacts. Yep. Whereas cluster API, for example, each of the individual providers are listed as their own sub-projects and stuff.
So again, like there's 2 points. There's the grouping of like who should get their own staging. They're basically free to us, so we shouldn't be stingy about them. Right. I'm fine with lots of granularity, although, we already have 50 something projects, and that'll probably 5x before we're done, which, makes oversight and audit a little bit complicated, but not terribly so. Especially when you see that many of those owner groups are the same people, right? I'm totally cool with people declaring multiple hats distinctly, right? I'm all about that. Then the second question was, like, from an UX point of view, end user UX point of view, does it make sense to nest the concepts in the final result? And I truly don't care. I just thought it was worth asking and discussing before we get too much farther. In some sense, the horse is already out of the barn. Like cluster API has already sort of published some number of artifacts, but it's not so far out of the barn that we can't throw a rope around it still.
Right. I guess I'd rather, I don't know, does anybody else have any input?
I thought I would leave it to Jason. If Jason said, yeah, actually this would make nicer Docker poll URLs, then cool, we'll do it. And if he says, nah, doesn't matter, then we won't bother.
Actually, what would be the benefit of grouping them together? What can be the benefit?
The benefit is that you see that like all these cluster API projects are explicitly grouped together because they have a sort of directory that covers them all, as opposed to just a common prefix. Now, the reality is, like, within cloud storage, which backs GCR, those are literally the same thing, and we're replacing a dash with a slash, right? But in how people look at their image names, it could be meaningful. I guess it's not, since most people will reference them by their full path anyway. So
right.
The other thing that might be meaningful is if people go browsing for, hey, what are all the cluster API providers that are available? They could use the Docker registry API to list everything in that directory, as opposed to listing everything with a prefix, which I don't think is a supported operation.
Right.
My opinion about this is it sounds nice, but I feel like we have so many things started, not finished, that it can be, that the stretch goal to think a little bit. But I don't think that it is so necessary to decide right now or change it right now.
I am totally fine with that. I don't think it's a ton of work, but it's not zero.
Okay. And I was going to say something similar. To me, it sounded like that it was a nice human-friendly grouping, which I am a fan of, but it's also unclear to me that that seems more of an arbitrary grouping that's maybe a little bit tougher to mechanically enforce as we look for a policy to apply to other sub-projects and stuff.
That's true. And I guess once we've done the vanity flip, like we've been telling people sort of don't publish these URLs too widely because they're going to get a vanity domain, and that way we get the abstraction. Once we have the vanity domain, I expect people to publish these image names pretty widely, and at that point we don't want to change them. So I'm fine with just saying this discussion is done. We're not going to do it. It's not worth the energy. And if somebody should come up and say, hey, I'm going to have 10 staging projects and I'd like them to be all grouped together, we can consider that as they want to do it, so we'll do it, and other groups don't care, and so they don't. That's fine with me too.
I think that what we also can do is maybe write in the issue what actually would have to be done to change it. Maybe, as you said, if it's like just a few clicks or something, somebody would pick it up and do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not complicated. I think all we would have to do is change the directory name in the manifest and commit that, and the promoter would automatically kick in and do its work. The old images would still be there, and we could just leave them there for anybody who had old references to them. I don't know if Linus has ever tested it this way, but I bet the promoter would just do its thing.
That's what I also think, but I just can't. I fail to recall if there's an explicit test that did test this part. So yeah.
If it's not tested, it's broken.
Yeah, I would just add a test, I guess, as an action item if we really wanted to make sure that it did support this. But currently, as I recall, the promoter currently does like a reconciliation check to make sure that no two manifests step on each other's toes. So that's what leads me to think that it's currently supported today.
Okay. Last thing I'll say is I'll take an AI to try and reach out to Jason and see if I can get some input from the cluster API folks.
Sounds good.
If there's nothing else on this, I'm ready to move on to Nikita's topic.
Yep, exactly. Nikita?
Oh, Nikita's here. Uh-oh, we're all in trouble.
Don't.
So yeah, this is more of just an FYI. So context around this is that we ran 2 instances of the publishing bot today. One is the GoDeps version for versions 1.14 and below, and one is Go modules friendly version for versions 1.14 and above. We've kept the GoDeps bot running for a while, even though it's basically a no-op run in case we might need it in the future. But on the final patch release for 1.14 was in early December. So it's been quite a while, and now we're sure that we don't need it anymore. I sent a notice to the mailing list about this last week. I will be turning down that instance of the bot after this meeting. Does anyone have questions or concerns around this?
Are the bots still running in that prod 2 cluster?
Yeah, the old
Dev 2.
Dev 2 cluster, yeah.
Okay. So my only question then is, when can we get rid of that and turn off Dev 2 and move that into AAA?
Actually,
There is nothing, yeah.
just a reminder, there is a pull request still in the state, which I'm not sure. So there is somebody picked up the process of deploying it our new cluster, but during the process, it's on this state, which I don't think that somebody understands.
I think Arno opened up that PR. Could you speak?
Yeah, there were some review comments on it. It also, that PR also moved the configs to the K8s.io repo, which there were some concerns around that, but I saw that Arnaud created a PR just now. I got an email about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I can follow up on it and check out what's the best way forward.
Great. I'd love to get that wrapped up. That's really the only reason that Dev 2 exists anymore.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Cool. Thank you.
I wore my 1.14 shirt in honor of the announcement. That's all I had to add to this.
Okay, so I think we can jump into the next topic, which is mine. And one of the last things which I didn't understand in our repository was the artifact server. So I started discussion with Deems and then asked a few questions for Brandon Burns. But still, I don't understand what is the state of this. If it's still planned to do, or if it's running somewhere, or what?
It's, as far as I know, it's not running anywhere. And the plan was to make it something that we could use as a redirector to mirrors and allow other providers to run also. The last I heard was months ago. Brendan started it up with, I think, Justin, maybe. I don't want to sign Justin up, but I think Justin's name was on that.
Justin.
And they were going to discuss how to do the signatures and crypto verification that the right images are being served and all of that. And then I think it just stalled out.
So the question is, how priority it is, because it's in what state the files inside the repository are right now. Because if nobody knows, or because there's no documentation and there's no plan, maybe we should remove it for now.
I don't have any information. I would like to see the work finished, but I'm not personally motivated or have time to do it right now. So if nobody's working on it, I'm fine to shutter it.
So no, I can just ask questions about what we expect from it and to write something, some proposal, and maybe somebody will pick it up, or maybe I will have some time to start doing it. But at this point, I couldn't find anywhere any more discussion about the requirements and that kind of stuff.
So is Justin here today?
He is not. I have one question that maybe pertains to this. So my understanding is we're super happy with the container image promoter and staging projects, because now we've given subprojects a place to host container images. But we still don't have a policy or process for subprojects to host binary artifacts.
That's
correct. I would like
correct.
to do for kind, because right now we're using somebody's personal bucket to host some kind artifacts, right?
Yeah, we're all over the map. In fact, this biggest single line item in terms of charging right now for storage is COPS, which is done semi-manually.
Yes, and I think that's what motivated Justin to work on this in the first place, was that this was going to be our solution for the binary artifacts. Or maybe there was discussion at one point of taking the container image promoter and also making it like an artifact promoter. I don't really know.
There's a reason that all of the service accounts and everything else are not called GCR. They're actually artifact promoter, because it was intended that it be the same process. At least it feel like it's the same process. Linus has not had any time or bandwidth to work on that. And I have sort of informally asked his boss if he will have time to work on that. The answer is not a clear yes. So, though I guess Linus, I don't know if Linus is here. I don't mean to speak for him.
Hey,
you're getting an intern, right? Is your intern going to look at this? Or no? It's okay to say no.
I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but they are coming in the middle of May, or toward May 18th is their start date. So I don't know if that changes things, but
well, no, it's not on fire in my opinion. What we have is working. It's just unpleasant. I would love to see somebody take up the banner of making these work the same.
Right. So this is in an effort to answer Bart's question. I think maybe what I would rescope this issue as is binary artifact promotion. We are very, very close to finishing container artifacts publishing, right? What we need is binary artifacts publishing.
Wait, just to be clear, I mean, Justin already did write some stuff there, next to the promoter base, and he has been using it for some months, or I don't know how many months, but It is in a usable state, so it's not like there has been no work done on it. So I think we would need like Justin's input here.
So the thing which I see right now is that there's a lot of unknown and we need to document it. So I will start asking questions about this and I will ask all of you, especially Linus, this is the completely new thing. I didn't know about it. And let's document and let's iterate over the requirements and, you know, some thoughts about this. I will also involve the Brendan, asking what he was expecting from this. So we will see how priority, how can we prioritize it or not.
Can I maybe suggest as an action item, Bart, you're going to sort of put together what the work plan would look like for artifact promotion?
Yep, sounds good to me.
I think just to cross-reference, there were two goals. One was let's get to a process of artifact promotion, but also to enable mirrors in other providers so that we could address the China bug.
So maybe consider mirroring like an orthogonal or an additional thing.
I mean, yes, we should definitely think of it as orthogonal because it brings new requirements. But part of the process was to get to where it was all automated, so we could either push to other mirrors or have it in a way that the mirrors could self-replicate.
Right. And this mirroring, would this also apply to the container stuff?
Potentially. Largely, it was on the other providers to come in and say how they wanted to run their mirrors, right? Obviously, Google gave us credits for this. If we want to store a mirror in Azure, Brendan said that he might be able to score credits to do the same thing.
Okay, so I have an action item to start like writing the stuff about it. Let's jump because we have a lot of topics more. Let's jump to another one. So I poke the topics around the DNSs, and I saw a lot of like a to-do directory for DNSs. And my question right now, mostly for Tim, because you put the to-dos there, what still needs to be done to automate it? This is the first question. The second question is, for example, there is some bug or some error you wrote there in to do, which I have no idea what does it mean. This always force or too many updates.
Okay, so the ideal end goal would be that DNS happened automatically. Somebody approves a commit to the DNS repository and some bot automatically pushes that to Cloud DNS, which we can start to set up now, especially we've got the workload identity stuff and we've got the cluster, like all the pieces are in place. There's a weird corner case. Octo DNS will require you to set a force flag if there's more than, I think, 30 updates at a time, which is generally not the case. But if it is, we just need to decide what it is that we want to do. We can always set the force flag, but then that means that if we accidentally deleted the entire DNS tree, it would nuke the whole thing. Like it would, there's no human override there. Or we just say, like if it requires the force flag, we just have to throw up an alert and make a human do it, which I'm okay with too. It's a little bit more complicated.
Okay, but so this topic also involves how we are gonna automate, you know, so we need to set up some web hooks to point to our cluster to do some work. And I don't think we have a process for that.
I'm not sure that we need to set up a webhook. We can simply run, like we could literally just run a pod that runs git sync as a sidecar, watches for changes in git sync. We need to figure out just, you know, like store a hash of the DNS subdirectory or something. And when that changes, just run Octo DNS against it.
So that sounds good, but I have no knowledge about it. How does it work? How to do it? Do you think it will be possible for us to do some pair programming maybe to show?
Sure.
Yeah. So my question for you is action item to you to find a time for me.
Okay. We had a semi-regular time before. With this new world order, the calendar's all sorts of messed up. You're still CET, right?
Yep.
Why don't we shoot for Tuesday AM, my AM, your afternoon.
For me, perfect.
All right. I'll throw something on the calendar right now and I'll copy you.
Yeah, because
I'd like to be included in that if that's okay.
Absolutely. Anybody who wants to be included is welcome to be included.
Okay. And my only other comment on this is I feel like this is what we use proud jobs for in other areas of the infrastructure.
So we could totally do it with PROW, except that we don't have a community PROW yet. We could do it in the non-community PROW if we wanted to. I don't have very much familiarity with PROW as to why PROW would be better or worse than this. If you want to, let's just schedule a meeting and we'll discuss.
Okay.
And because also this is the topic for other places, for example, like automating the auditing too.
Yeah, exactly.
This will set a precedent.
Yeah, exactly. That is important for me.
I look to what we do for managing GitHub right now via Parabolos. That's all run as a proud job. And so I like that as the model to use going forward.
So even better, we can hear, I didn't know about one thing and the second thing too, so I can learn from that.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So the next topic actually is kind of, I wanted to show maybe other people who don't know what the process is currently, if you would like to move it from somewhere to the new infrastructure. If you are interested, just look into the steps which I wrote, but there is a big gap which I see is about how to manage the subdomains. We don't have a process, and if we, for example, at the last step of moving a project and we want to test it with some subdomain, but we don't want to, flip the switch and move it from some other place to this test environment, which we are just testing. What is the process of, using some domain, not proper domain yet, but to test, certificates, to test if the traffic is coming, etc., etc.
So unfortunately, you can't test certificates because the certificates won't be issued unless the domain matches, right? So
that's the process which I would like to discuss, because I think that it would be good to have some domain which will be, for example, directly pointing to some ingress, and for example, where you can manually create some subdomain which will be, for example, scrapped after 24 hours just for testing purposes or something like that.
Okay. No, I have no major objections. We don't have anything like that. I can tell you what I did for the K8s.io and GCS web flips, which was I brought up the ingress in the new cluster. Obviously, DNS wasn't pointing to it yet. And then but I created the certificate resources, which went out and provisioned a self-signed certificate. And then I wrote tests against the IP address with the hostname header and the insecure flag on curl. And I verified that all of the hosts and paths that I expected to work on the new server worked on the new server. And then once I was convinced of that, I manually copied the old certificate over so that SSL would be correct. And then flipped the DNS. And when the DNS flipped, Certificate Manager just took over and started managing the new certificate. So the only privileged operation in there at all was reading the old certificate out and copying it up into the new server.
So that's good, because we also did that with James last week for PerfDash. So we checked if the logs look right, but I'm missing the point which you wrote the tests for this. So if you have them somewhere,
look in the K8s.io subdirectory, K8s.io/K8s.io. There's a canary test which parses the something and run, or maybe it doesn't. It has I think it's open coded in there's a test.py which we point at a different IP address.
So that's good. I will check that, but I will also start a discussion, and I will try to document the suggestion for using some domain to and scrap every 24 hours the records.
Yeah, I have no objection to that if we can figure out how to do it.
Okay, sounds good to me. James, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, like setting up if we can actually set up a DNS record with any domain at all, pointing to the IP address, then you can test out the full Let's Encrypt flow there if you'd like. Like whether we use a subdomain of one of our existing ones or what we do there, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it technically shouldn't be unsafe to allow like having something like staging.k8s.io. I think that should be okay. I don't know if I suppose the issue is when we're migrating stuff because we can't update the old records.
I wouldn't use the K8s.io. I think we have domain, for example, like X dash. I don't know what is it for, but
K8s.io. We registered the domain for people to declare CRDs that are managed by SIGs that are sort of under the umbrella of the Kubernetes project, but not official. Like they're not part of the required set of APIs. I don't think that would be the right thing to use for this.
I didn't know about it. So maybe we can think about some other domain. I would not. I don't think that it's a good idea to use the subdomain over the K8s.io.
I'm open to hearing why. I don't see that as a particular problem if we are smart with the subdomain.
My other random question is like, why do we have to use a subdomain? Like, why don't we? I don't know. We have a prow.k8s.io and prow-canary.k8s.io. That works well enough for us.
It's my question was mostly related that right now, if you want to add this, you need to create a pull request over the OctoDNS configuration. It needs to be accepted then. And for example, to creating just for the testing purposes, the subdomain, going through the whole flow, and then, I don't know, removing the subdomain is not optimal. It would be just easier to have some domain which will be, more dynamic, so you can manually log into the cluster, add the subdomain. But like one subdomain will be as a wildcard used inside the ingress, and then you can use just some testing subdomain for that particular case of just testing.
So I think what we need here is like something that writes up what are the goals? What are we hoping to test and prove through those tests? And what do we need to achieve that? If we want a subdomain with a delegation that we allow more automation around, less tightly controlled automation, I'm okay with that. But I want to understand what exactly we're proving through that test.
Okay, so I will. Actually, I created the issue, so let's move to the discussion there about that topic. Because I deployed the perf dash to the new cluster, but I don't have enough knowledge about the perf dash itself to test if it's working correctly, and so I need to involve the people from the perf dash, but also it would be easier to just have the test subdomain where I would check if it's even like showing anything, or if it's breaking, how it's breaking in a UI way.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move the discussion to the issue about that particular case. The next thing is about the billing, because we all know that we have billing, but there is like a discussion, there was started discussion about using some G Suite account to have access to edit this. And I would like this discussion again, because right now, I don't know, the only one is Justin, I think, who have access to it.
Yes, probably.
and it would be good to to make it more accessible. I think at least there is like some issues like adding the per K8s namespace billing, and the only one who can do it right now is Justin, and maybe if somebody else could help with that, or I would like to help with that, but I can't because I don't have access.
So I thought that Justin had shared a doc. I mean, it's all done through the G Suite API. I thought he had shared something with the group that is the accounter, like GCP accounting or something.
Maybe it is. Maybe that was I wanted to ask about this too, but without him, it would be hard.
So I think there's two issues. One is that we should probably have a G Suite account to own the doc, a Kubernetes.io G Suite instead of Justin's own G Suite or his own Gmail address. Just to own it, just to give it an anchor. And probably there will be other such docs that we would like to have a G Suite account that creates and then grants edit access to. That's something for steering, since we have exactly 3 G Suite accounts right now. This would be a 4th, at least was the last time I knew about it. The second part of it is who should be able to edit that. And we have explicit Google groups for that purpose. So I think he already shared it with the accounting group, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so question to, I think, Aaron about...
So I pasted a link in chat. I can click an edit button for that. I'm curious if you can.
I can't because I checked, but I'm not the part of the the accounting group, I think.
So you should add yourself to accounting and then see if you can edit it. I bet you can.
I will do it, yeah. That's the first thing. And the second question is around how we should process of, creating these additional G Suite account, because I read few issues about this for country backs, I think, and I don't know if we should create some cap or how to ask to create the G Suite account.
Why does it have to be a G Suite account specifically? I guess my impression, maybe I'm wrong, is this would just be another group that we're using for Hackles.
We need, I want to make sure that the doc is owned by somebody who can't disappear. Right? Like, suppose Justin, because he's a very temperamental guy, got mad and decided he didn't want to, he wanted to get rid of the doc and just break the link. So just having a G Suite account where we can anchor the docs is all we're asking for there.
Okay. We can't anchor it to the group?
No, you can't anchor a doc to a group.
Okay.
It has a creator. And while an editor can basically blank out the doc, they can't delete the doc. Only the owner can.
Okay.
And I know G Suite accounts are charged, so that's why it's an issue, right?
Right. Let me take an AI to go talk to steering about that.
Yeah, and as far as I saw and read the documentation to create the G Suite account for the country backs, it wasn't that easy.
Yeah, I'll have to find out.
Okay, great. Next topic. This is like an open discussion for the monitoring perspective. I would like to have some initial goals, what we expect from the monitoring of the AAA cluster, and I want to move it forward.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of digging and I set up some manual monitoring just for the K8s.io site to make sure that it's up. And I was able to set that all up manually. I filed an issue to try to figure out what the command line for it is. And lo and behold, there was a command line coming for it. And they just went into, I think, G-Cloud Alpha fairly recently, or maybe G-Cloud Beta fairly recently. I have not yet tried to script what I did manually. I would like us to try to have a script that recreates what we've done so that we can understand it. And I would like to add it to the audit, but I don't know how to do that yet.
My question was mostly related to the requirements, because I feel like we can jump straight to the scripting or straight to the monitoring, but when we don't know what are our requirements, it's
okay.
It will be hard to document after. If it will be easier if we would have like the requirements and then do the script or do the work.
Absolutely. I don't have in my mind generalized requirements. And it's going to be interesting if we're trying to use something like Stackdriver, which is still, I think, very ClickOps heavy, for an arbitrary app running in our cluster to set up monitoring may need a shoulder surfing session with somebody who has ClickOps capabilities and the app owners who don't. So
I will add action item to me to actually check that, and I will try to find a person who can help me with that, and I will try to write some requirements and suggest some requirements, and then we can discuss in the next meeting.
Also, a small comment on that. I think the Stackdriver API, or at least the monitoring, finally does have Terraform packages. So we might be able to work around the issue of the ClickOps heavy stuff with just jumping into Terraform there.
Sounds good. I think that, so I will start a discussion. I will create an issue because I don't have any experience with Stackdriver. I will at least like to read a little bit, but I will move it to the GitHub discussion.
Sure. And like all things that we're learning about here, if we want to set up a test project where we can just, muck around with it and cause trouble and know that at the end we can blow the whole thing away, like happy to do that too.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Okay, so the next topic, it was actually already discussed, so the GCP auditing automation. So I'm not gonna start this. We need to find the way of, running some jobs when something will change in our repository. So we will discuss this in our call. So what is the status of moving projects? This is kind of interesting because I think we should have a list of the projects which we need to move. We have two issues which were created by Aaron about the clusters which currently exist and about the projects which needs to be moved. But I don't feel like this is everything there. So I would like to ask all of you to think about which project still needs to be moved, and it's even better to put the names of the people who I can poke to start like a discussions. For example, the people who know how this project is deployed currently in the current cluster. So here is the action items for all of you, especially the people who knows. So I think Tim, Aaron, I don't know who else.
We have other volunteers that we can delegate to.
I can assign names to most of these things. I'm going to prioritize accordingly.
Perfect. That would help me at least very much to do, because what I was doing, I actually during the last 2 weeks I digged into all corners of our repository and issues. I think I looked at most of them so far, and I'm gonna try to change it to the documentation. So I will soon, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, send a link to you about what I found and what I think that are the states of the efforts which we are doing, and then we can decide how we want to change it to the documentation.
Okay. Personally, I want to get us back to a world of milestones and using a project board. I know we drifted away from that a while ago. I think
that fell apart. Sorry.
I didn't like document how it was done well enough, because when I disappeared, that disappeared. I understand. That's a sign that the organization was not institutionalized.
I'm definitely up to moving back. For me, it was the last 2 or 3 weeks was very eye-opening, and to see everything. So now I know more than I knew like the 2 months ago, much more. So be easier.
Yeah.
And the last from my list of items is I created a small pull request to close one of the issues. If you can look if it's okay for you. Feel free to do so.
Is it assigned to me? Or is it? I assume you're talking to me, but maybe not.
No, I'm saying to. Actually, this is just adding another path to go.k8s.io, which is just help, which is pointing to our repository with the links of our directions.
Okay. So we're over time, right? But we're starting
We have
the.
13 minutes.
15 minutes more.
Oh, I'm off by a half hour. Sorry. Yes, I thought for some reason I thought we started at 8. We starting the war room in another half hour, 45 minutes from now. Was the link already posted for that?
Yep.
Okay. Hopefully it's very boring and not much to see here, and we get that process going. Once we get this behind us, the world is our oyster. We can take on the next windmill, which maybe is Prow.
Maybe. I feel like
Part of
I
Prow?
still haven't had sufficient time to really dig into that, but I think a Prow build cluster at the very least.
Excellent. Foot in the door, foot in the door.
Yes.
Love to, maybe do a little bit more like a pair programming with that, because this is the big thing, and as many people would know how to proceed with that would be really, really beneficial, I feel. I mean, about
Totally understand. I hear you. Yeah, I don't plan on like just doing that. I plan on documenting what I think we should do and discussing with the group.
Yeah.
And as you know, as much as we raised the bar on the image promotion stuff to get this all moved over, I hope we don't need to raise the bar quite as far for Prow. Actually, I think Prow is on better footing than the rest of the image management stuff was, so it should not be as hard as this one was.
That is my great hope as well.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, basically it comes down to like creating a build cluster such that we can run jobs is pretty easy. Putting Vascos in so that we can start provisioning test clusters in projects that are owned by the CNCF will vastly increase our spend. That is not quite as well documented right now. So that'll take some time. Moving Prow itself over or creating a separate instance of Prow, that will be harder. We still need to think through it, but it kind of comes down to like how much downtime we're willing to accept. Maybe we just suggest that there's a weekend or something where the Kubernetes project is just kind of going to be quiet for a little while we get things flipped over. But anyway, that's the crawl, walk, run that I have in my head that I will document.
That's great. One step at a time, and it's not a rush, but the money's there and it's not being spent, so let's spend it.
Yes, I think something I will want this group's help with is the sheer volume of jobs that we run would destroy our spend. So we should consider
destroy.
which jobs.
I mean, we budgeted $3 million a year. You're saying we're spending more than $3 million on Prow?
Unclear.
We'd better not be, because I ran all the analysis before, and the 3 million included the 5K node scale tests and all CI and all the GCR, which.
Okay.
Now that was a year and a half ago or something, so it's entirely likely that the total number has grown since then. but as we ramp up, we'll get a better picture of it. So.
Yes.
And either way, it has to happen, right? Like this stuff can't stay sort of shadow funded by Google forever.
Right. No, I agree.
Okay, so that was the last item on my list. Is there any other topic which we would like to spend our last 9 minutes today?
Just a random for what it's worth. I know there's a lot of shell in our repo. I know there's a desire to have less shell and use more Terraform. I think it's going to take us a while. I tried to see if, as a stopgap, I could use something called Terraformer, which you should be able to point at an arbitrary Google project and have it create Terraform resources for everything that's in there.
I would like to add one thing to that. I don't think it's the best time right now to focus on moving from the bash, because the Terraform itself, it will be not that hard, but this is I would treat it as a stretch at this point. Let's finish the things which we started using this approach and Terraform it as a next step.
That was going to be my suggestion after trying that. That was the only thing I could think of that might get us over the line a little bit more quickly to like auto-generate the resources. Let's not do that.
Okay. So there's a PR open that I have not looked very deeply at because my Terraform is weak, and so I opened it and it scared me. What I'm hoping to do still is small refactorings against the shell code that make it more obvious what the hell is going on in there, so that the Terraform will map more closely.
But this is only possible when we will sit and decide, okay, this script is creating the GCP bucket and GCS bucket, and decide, okay, these are the resources which are being created, these are the groups which need to have access to that. And when this will be documented, it will be easier to split it into the Terraform resources which we need to work on. And
right.
With that, I wouldn't even try to, because this is the PR right now, is at the stage of, we try to move something which already exists without thinking if it's right. And we can think if it's right when we will not know which resources are being created and who should have access to those.
So one of these steps will be going through that audit and removing things that we go, why does that exist? And I know there's some of those.
Already started. So there's a repository which I created, which I digged through the whole scripts, and all resources which are created by the scripts are in this repository, which I shared like the last 2 weeks. But I did some cross-checking and start there are like a few places where you are directly set as an owner, or you or Justin is set as an owner, and that kind of stuff.
I think those all of those such cases go to an open bug, which is whoever creates a project gets listed as an owner for it, and our script doesn't go through and explicitly remove that person. We probably should.
So I will send you a link just right away, which my research about this topic. So this is this place. It's not perfect, but all resources are there.
Sorry, were you posting a link in chat or something?
Yeah, I did. Sorry. Oh, no, my bad.
I say I don't see it. There we go.
One.
All right, I will queue that up to try to take a look.
So that actually can be an interesting point for somebody from the community to do the cross-checking. We have the audit, we have my analysis of the scripts, and we can check how they compare.
Okay. Is this, sorry, just to be clear, is this just an analysis or are you actually refactoring all the scripts?
So this is the analysis of the scripts and the suggestions of the components, Terraform components we can use to gain the same results.
Got it. Okay. Oh, wow. Look at you. All right. There's a lot to do there.
Yeah, I spent some time on that,
Okay.
but I learned a lot.
Cool. Do you think it's, so I did a little bit of script cleanup in the last couple of weeks just to make things easier to find. Is it worthwhile to continue doing that, or should we just focus all energy on this?
So my suggestion, and it helped me a lot, was to understand which are the real resources each script creates and which are just the IEMs and the permissions for the people to access the project. So what I would really, really like all of you to is to document it, not start rewriting the scripts, but to write, okay, this script creates the GCS bucket for project for the GCR registry, and these are the group which should have ownership over its edit access or just view access. And this is kind of easy to do, and it will be much easier for people to improve these event scripts or to rewrite it to Terraform in the future. Just simple thing. What real resources are it's creating and who should have access to these resources.
Okay. I will think about how to document that in a way that doesn't drift. My big concern is we write the documentation and then we fix a bug and then the documentation's out of date.
That's the case. I don't want to overcomplicate it. Just simple, because in most cases it's just the GCS bucket, GCR registry, and everything else are just IEMs. So and the IEMs actually are like 80% of the scripts are for the IEMs.
That's true.
These are kind of tricky because they are hard to read and dig and understand who and what have access to what. So
okay,
it helped me a lot to understand that there are only few resources being created. Everything else are just the access management.
Okay. That seems more tractable then.
Last 2 minutes, last topics. I feel like this meeting was very beefy, like heavy meat.
All right. Well, I will see whoever wants to show up for the war room in about a half hour.
So thank you all for being here, and I will see you later in 2 weeks or in half an hour.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.